NFC, AFC Championship games over the weekend. I think they lived up to expectations. Not particularly well played from a football point of view, but very intriguing and enlightening if you were determined to prove to other people that you knew Jay Cutler would prove you right. And he did. I had been waiting all year to it's rare that I'm right about anything. Very, very rare, but you sensed that when the moment came, when the spotlight was on Jay Cutler, he would let everybody down. And I love to be right about big things, because I'm wrong about like thousands and thousands and thousands of little things in between. But I wasn't wrong about Jay Cutler. And don't get me wrong, a gazillion people were right along with me. So, I don't know, what was it, late second quarter, JR? Is that more or less when we were exposed to the reality of Jay Cutler?
When it started or when he was done?
When he was done. When he decided to check out.
He was done in the third quarter.
Right, but he first took a little, we noticed him he left before the end of the first half, but I think Green Bay had the ball. And then he came back to start the third quarter and then checked out. But we knew there was trouble in the third quarter. And then it turned out, of course, it was severe. And then Todd Collins came in, and then we were left with Caleb Haney. There's so many things that I like about this story. Caleb Haney, by the way, his quote today, Caleb Haney today said about Jay Cutler, Caleb Haney, the third-string quarterback who ended up playing pretty well. Caleb Haney said about Cutler, he's limping around today, and he feels bad we lost. Well, he feels bad we lost. Well, it's a ringing endorsement of his injury. By the way, is not Caleb Haney the kind of guy, after having a pretty good day with one horrific pass, but is not Caleb Haney the exact kind of guy who comes in and plays pretty well in a game, and then the next week, if they had a game when defensive coordinators have an entire week to prepare for Caleb Haney, he goes 9 of 26 for 84 yards with 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions? Isn't that exactly what happens to Caleb Haney next week? And I'm guessing Jay Cutler could have played in the Super Bowl, because here's what I'm guessing. Not really hurt. Lovie Smith today coming out and telling everybody it turns out Jay Cutler had an MCL tear, not an ACL tear. Probably wouldn't have needed surgery. They're saying he's questionable for the Super Bowl. My God, if you're the starting quarterback and you would have been questionable for the Super Bowl, I think you should probably try to play. Especially if your 2 backups are A, Todd Collins, and B, Caleb Haney. But it's Jay Cutler, so maybe he wouldn't have played. So when Cutler checked out in the third quarter of what was a competitive game at that point, the viciousness of the attacks on him on Twitter were unbelievable. And those attacks did not come, well, I'm sure they did, but we're not talking about attacks from Bear fans, which I'm sure were vicious. Those attacks came from NFL players, present and past, attacking Jay Cutler. We're going to begin with linebacker Derek Brooks of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Longtime Tampa Bay Buccaneer linebacker, a terrific player. During the game, when Jay Cutler checks out, here's the first tweet from Derek Brooks. I would have to be crawling and can't get up to come off the field. Josh Freeman would not come out. That's the second-year starting quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Josh Freeman would not come out. Meds are available. He's saying Jay Cutler should take meds, painkillers. He's got to keep playing. Then later, after he learned that Cutler would be unavailable to return because Collins was taken out and Haney came in, then Brooks got even angrier and said, there is no medicine for a guy with no guts and no heart. Oh, man, I love Derek Brooks. Then another future Hall of Famer, Deion Sanders. Everybody knows Deion Sanders, working for the NFL Network. He tweeted, I would never question a player's injury, says Deion, but I do question a player's heart, which, by the way, Deion, means that you are questioning a player's injury. But we'll keep going, just to prove my point. Darnell Dockett is a linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. Of all these people we're going to tell you, he's the only guy who's well, some of these guys have actually, a couple of these guys have not gone to a Super Bowl, so I apologize, including, but Derek Brooks, who will unquestionably go to the Hall of Fame. Deion Sanders going to go to the Hall of Fame. Darnell Dockett, defensive lineman, excuse me, not a linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. He tweets, if I'm on the Chicago team, Jay Cutler, he says, if I'm on the Chicago team, Jay Cutler has to wait till me and the team shower to get, he says he has to wait till me and the team showered and get dressed and leave before he comes in the locker room. So he has to obviously wait until I'm gone to shower and get dressed and leaves before he comes into the locker room. I think that's what he's saying. His point is, he's got to wait till I'm gone, or there's gonna be trouble with me. Obviously, the inference being, I'm gonna come after him because Darnell Dockery, excuse me, thinks that he quit. Same inference from Deion Sanders. He quit. He has no heart. From Derek Brooks, quit and no heart. Darnell Dockery, Deion Sanders, Derek Brooks. He quit. He has no heart. Mark Schlereth, former Redskin, former Bronco, ESPN analyst. He tweets during the game, all these tweets during the game. Here's what Schlereth has to say about Jay Cutler. As a guy who is, and by the way, this is true of Mark Schlereth, 20 knee surgeries. Schlereth says, as a guy who has had 20 knee surgeries, you would have to drag me out on a stretcher to leave a championship game. That's what I'm talking about, JR. You got to try, man. A championship game. He's the quarterback. And this is what they've said about Cutler all along. His teammates don't like him. He whines. He points to other players. He blames other people. You got to try, man. You got to show that you have some sort of commitment.
They're in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, and like I said, I'm not in the locker room, so I can understand what they're saying, if that's the way he's always been. How'd he get there if he's always done that? He wouldn't even complain about a hangnail or something by now then? If he can't wait to quit a game, how come he's waiting to quit right now?
He's not. Look, I don't want to say, there's certain things, Jank with his winners and losers. I'm telling you, Jay Cutler's a loser. Everybody thinks he has this cannon, this $1 million arm. Nobody doubts that. Steve Young, when he played in I guess it would have been, this is the ESPN, it would have been on a Monday night game. Steve Young is so frustrated by him because, there was a quote here from one of the things I read today from a football analyst who was just shaking his head at Cutler, who also believes, how do you just leave that game with what appeared to be barely even limping without even trying? Because he knows this guy could be great, but he doesn't put the effort in. He doesn't work on the footwork. They're like, this guy is so close to being brilliant, but he doesn't do what Aaron Rodgers does. He doesn't make that effort. And I'm sure it was Steve Young, because at that game that Cutler had played well in whatever game that was on that Monday night game. And he thought, he doesn't do what has to be done. He could be great, and he won't do the footwork. He's throwing off the back foot. And all these other guys are putting that effort in to be great. And I don't remember, it was, and it was the young quarterbacks who were doing it. And, the work that Peyton Manning has done, and the work that Tom Brady has done, and of the younger guys, the work that Aaron Rodgers has done, that Drew Brees has done. The work that a guy like Josh Freeman at the Buccaneers is clearly willing to do, although right now Josh Freeman is just running around and making plays, but with heart and taking hit after hit after hit and getting up. Last tweet, Maurice Jones-Drew, Bruin, and a tough, even JR's got to acknowledge this, he's a tough bastard, Maurice Jones-Drew. He tweets in the middle of the game, all I'm saying, he says, is that he can finish the game on a hurt knee. I played the whole season on one. Now, what you got to acknowledge, JR, is that here are 6 tweets from players. You know that players don't call out other players in the middle of a game. Like, it's got to be something that they know about this guy that caused them to do this in the middle of a game, because that's unusual, right? It
is. And when it was posed to Urlacher after the game, and he didn't, of course, he didn't know about it, and he was upset about that.
Urlacher, and look, at least I'm pleased, his teammates backed him up. They did, although that quote today from Caleb Haney, like, yeah, he's limping around. He feels bad we lost. I mean, it's like, but Urlacher said, hey, he's hurt. He's always been there with us. I can't imagine, and I'm pleased to see Urlacher said that, but I wouldn't imagine anything less from Urlacher or from his teammates. But I can't imagine that they weren't miffed, that he didn't come out and really give it more of a serious effort. I mean, Todd Collins, man, they took Todd Collins. Todd Collins couldn't get the ball 12 years downfield. Short-armed, everything. I mean, he's 122 years old. It's not his fault.
He shouldn't have been backing up anybody in the NFL.
Yeah, and Caleb Haney thrown 3 passes.
No, this is the thing. The players, of course, I can respect that. There's a mentality. These guys played. They currently play. All that stuff. What kind of bothered me was when they pulled the LeBron treatment on him, and now they're burning jerseys, and all that stuff, which is ridiculous. Because I don't know. I watched the whole game. The Bears had no chance until he was out of the game, and then Caleb Haney got a chance after Todd Collins realized that he can't throw the ball 5 yards down the field because his arm had some kind of problem.
Look,
they had a chance all of a sudden.
I waited all year, as I said, hardly the only one, and a lot of the people who I read, like Bill Simmons at ESPN, the sports guy, a lot of us waited all year to put mythical wagers on Jay Cutler in an important game. All year. And it didn't count last week because, hey, look, I'm Jay Cutler. I beat the worst team ever to make the playoffs, right? But, Caleb, they've thrown 3 passes. It's just, there's a significant lack of commitment there by Cutler that I think everybody saw it. I think even you saw it. You're playing a little devil's advocate, but I'm not even buying it. I don't think you have it in you.
I mean, just look at the numbers. Cutler was 6 of 14 for 80 yards and a pick. Haney was 13 of 20 for 153, a touchdown, and 2 picks. And that last one, it was desperation. He threw the ball up. I mean,
come on. Well, it was desperation.
It was 4th down. I mean,
it was 4th down. I know, but
he had to throw the ball downfield.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, and he gave up the
that was a rookie mistake.
Touchdown.
Yeah, that was the one that was directly. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but you weren't going to win the game with Caleb Haney, and the Packers let up on that other touchdown drive. No, I got it. Cutler wasn't playing well, but he's got a big arm. He's the guy. He's their quarterback. He did his success. We'd all been waiting. What I was getting at, we'd all been waiting for that one game where it mattered for Jay Cutler to come through for us, and he did. And then he augmented it even more than we could possibly have imagined. I mean, I didn't think he'd quit in the middle of the game. I knew he'd throw some horrible interceptions. I knew he wouldn't make a play. I knew that when Devin Hester was open, he would miss him by 4 yards twice. I knew that he would miss open receivers in a way that the bottom rung of NFL starting quarterbacks hit when it mattered. I knew it, and other people knew it. But I didn't think halfway through the game he'd think, my knee hurts. I don't want to play anymore.